At the beginning of the drama, we are introduced to a sweet girl named Susie. Besides studying, she also worked various part-time jobs to earn money. One day, she came to her college to deliver a parcel. However, while leaving, she suddenly slipped and was about to fall onto a boy. Fortunately, the boy quickly caught her before she could fall. This boy's name is June, and he is the male lead of our story. Now, since June had just saved Susie, anyone would expect her to thank him. But instead, Susie suddenly slapped him hard across the face. June was left completely stunned and couldn't understand why this girl had slapped him out of nowhere. The scene then cuts from there. In the next scene, we see Susie hanging out with her two friends. One of them is named Shin, while the other is Han. Here we learn that Susie suffers from a very strange condition. Whenever a boy touches her, this condition automatically activates, and no matter how hard she tries to stop herself, she ends up slapping that person. This is exactly what happened with June earlier that morning. Susie is explaining her condition to her friends, but Han doesn't believe a single word she says. To check whether she is telling the truth, he reaches out and touches Susie's cheek. The moment he does, Susie instantly slaps him across the face. After receiving the slap himself, Han finally realizes that Susie was telling the truth all along. After that, we are shown an art class where the teacher announces that a female model has been brought in for the students to draw. The students are told to sketch her portrait. It turns out that the model is none other than Susie herself. As we already know, Susie accepts all kinds of part-time jobs, so she came here for this work as well. Coincidentally, June is also in this class. The moment he sees Susie, he asks if she came here just to start another fight with him. Before long, the two of them begin arguing once again. Their argument gets so heated that the teacher has to step in and tell them to stop and focus on their work. A little later, June shows Susie a black dress and asks her to wear it for the modeling session. However, Susie doesn't want to wear it. June then tells her that she will receive extra payment if she agrees. Since Susie is absolutely crazy about earning money and never says no to a well-paying job, she immediately changes her mind and agrees to wear the dress. After making the payment, June hands the dress over to Susie. Unfortunately, the moment their hands touch, Susie's strange condition activates once again. Before she can stop herself, she slaps June right in front of everyone. But this time, something unusual happens. Immediately after the slap, June suddenly starts feeling intense pain in his chest. He looks extremely sick and struggles to endure the pain. Seeing this, Susie becomes terrified. She starts wondering how a simple slap could possibly make someone this ill. Anyway, in the next scene, we see Susie working another part-time job while dressed up as a teddy bear mascot. While she is working, a little boy approaches her. The child bumps into Susie and then suddenly starts crying by himself. Susie has absolutely no idea what happened and is left completely confused. Just then, the boy's mother arrives. Seeing her son crying, she immediately starts blaming Susie and saying all kinds of rude things to her. In reality, the woman assumes that Susie must have scolded her son, which is why he is crying. Without even listening to Susie's explanation, she tries to push her to the ground. But at that exact moment, June suddenly appears and catches Susie before she can fall. However, we immediately notice that something about June is completely different. His appearance, attitude, and overall vibe have changed entirely. This June feels nothing like the June we saw before. As for the reason behind this sudden transformation, you'll find out very soon. June quickly steps in and gives the woman a proper response. After hearing him, she can no longer argue and simply leaves without causing any more trouble. Susie, on the other hand, is completely confused. She can't understand why June is suddenly taking her side. After all, she has already slapped him twice for absolutely no reason, so he should technically be against her. Anyway, June then takes Susie back to his house, but the moment they arrive, he suddenly returns to his normal personality. When he sees Susie standing there, he looks surprised and immediately grabs her hand to throw her out of the house. Unfortunately, the moment he touches her, Susie's strange condition activates once again, and she ends up slapping him. As soon as the slap lands, June starts experiencing severe chest pain again. This makes it seem like he might transform back into that other version of himself. After leaving June's house, Susie is walking down the street when a group of thugs starts harassing her. Once again, our hero June makes a perfect entrance. He jumps in, beats the thugs without mercy, and successfully saves Susie from the situation. Afterward, the two of them get on a bus together. June asks Susie to apply medicine to one of his injuries. Susie carefully starts treating his wound. But while she is doing that, the bus suddenly begins moving, causing June to lean closer to her. As expected, the accidental contact triggers Susie's condition yet again. Even though she doesn't want to do it, she ends up slapping June one more time. Interestingly, after receiving this slap, June immediately returns to his normal self once again. Susie feels feels guilty about what happened, so she apologizes to him before getting off the bus and heading home. Meanwhile, June becomes increasingly confused about everything that has been happening. He starts wondering if Susie might actually be some kind of witch. Not only does she keep slapping him whenever they touch, but he also keeps losing parts of his memory. Every time he regains consciousness, he somehow finds Susie standing in front of him. Because of all these strange incidents, June gradually convinces himself that Susie must be a witch. Starting from the very next day, whenever June sees Susie, he immediately runs away from her. Susie quickly notices this strange behavior and starts wondering why he is avoiding her. Later that evening, June is working alone inside a classroom when the electricity suddenly goes out. As it turns out, June is extremely afraid of darkness. A few moments later, the power comes back on and he notices Susie standing right in front of him. Susie asks why he keeps running away from her. She jokingly asks whether he thinks she is a ghost or some kind of witch. But before June can properly answer, the electricity suddenly goes out again. And as we already know, June is terrified of the dark. So this time, he immediately moves closer to Susie and grabs onto her clothes while standing beside her. Seeing this reaction, Susie finally realizes that June is genuinely afraid of darkness. However, she cannot simply hold his hand and comfort him because touching him would trigger her strange condition again. So instead, Susie comes up with a clever solution. Using a stick, she carefully guides June and helps him make his way outside. As Susie helps June outside, we are suddenly shown a short flashback from June's childhood. In this flashback, we see young June locked inside a dark room all by himself. Since we already know that June is terrified of darkness, this experience must have been extremely traumatic for him. However, there was one little girl who would often come to the window and talk to him. She would even bring him a lollipop to cheer him up. The scene then returns to the present. We see Susie receiving an urgent phone call from the hospital. The staff informs her that her grandmother has escaped from the hospital. Hearing this shocking news, Susie immediately sets out to find her grandmother, and June decides to help her. As it turns out, Susie's grandmother suffers from memory loss and also has poor eyesight. Fortunately, June and Susie manage to find her in the same area before anything bad happens. However, when they meet her, the grandmother fails to recognize Susie. To help refresh her memory, Susie gives her a lollipop. The moment she sees it, her grandmother finally recognizes her. But because her eyesight is so weak, she mistakenly looks at June and assumes that he is Susie's mother. From that moment on, she starts treating June as if he were Susie's mom. To make things even funnier, Susie decides to play along and starts calling June Mom as well. Poor June is completely confused and has absolutely no idea why everyone is suddenly treating him this way. Anyway, after safely taking the grandmother back to the hospital, Susie finally explains everything to June. She sincerely apologizes for all the times she slapped him and then tells him the full truth about her strange condition. After hearing her explanation, June starts connecting the dots in his head. He realizes that every time Susie slapped him, he seemed to lose parts of his memory afterward. Curious to find out whether this theory is correct, June actually asks Susie to slap him one more time. Of course, Susie refuses because she doesn't want to hit him for no reason. So June deliberately touches her in order to trigger her condition. Just as expected, Susie immediately slaps him again. The moment the slap lands, June begins experiencing severe chest pain once more. At the same time, another memory from his childhood flashes through his mind. The next morning when June wakes up, he discovers a video on his phone. To his surprise, the video was recorded by himself the previous night. In the recording, June is talking about Susie and even introducing her as his friend. The strange thing is that June has absolutely no memory of recording this video, and this is where the truth finally starts coming out. It turns out that June suffers from dissociative identity disorder, meaning he has two completely different personalities living inside the same body. Ever since childhood, June grew up alone. Because of his loneliness, he often talked to himself, and somewhere along the way, he unknowingly created another personality within his mind. Meanwhile, early that morning, Susie comes to visit him. June is surprised to see her standing there. Susie has even brought food that she prepared specially for him. However, June makes an excuse and asks her to leave for the time being. After Susie leaves, something unbelievable happens. For the first time in his life, June is able to see his second personality standing in front of him. Of course, this person doesn't physically exist in reality. He is simply a manifestation of June's other self. June looks at him and asks who he is. The second personality calmly replies that he is simply another version of June himself. June then asks asks what exactly he wants. His other personality answers that he wants June to treat Susie well. Not only that, but he also wants June to stay by Susie's side and spend more time with her. After hearing those words, June finally begins to understand something important. He realizes that his second personality seems to care deeply about Susie and may even have feelings for her. At this point, June finally realizes that his second personality wants only one thing: for Susie to become June's girlfriend. Meanwhile, we see Susie spending time with Shin when she suddenly receives a phone call from June. To her surprise, June invites her out for dinner. Susie is quite shocked by the invitation, but she eventually agrees to go. Later, when she arrives at the restaurant, she is completely stunned by what she sees. June has decorated the entire place beautifully. Colorful lights are shining everywhere, and romantic music is playing in the background, creating the perfect atmosphere. Then, without wasting any time, June directly confesses his feelings and asks Susie to become his girlfriend. The sudden proposal leaves Susie speechless. She doesn't know how to respond, so instead of giving an answer, she simply gets up and leaves. However, June misunderstands the situation and assumes that she ran away because she was feeling shy. Not willing to give up, June decides to try again. This time, he approaches Susie with a bouquet of flowers and confesses to her once more. Unfortunately for him, Susie once again runs away without giving him an answer. Now June starts thinking that maybe Susie simply didn't like the flowers, so he comes up with a completely different plan. A little later, while Susie is staying at her hostel, delivery men begin arriving one after another carrying packages addressed to her. The deliveries become so frequent that the hostel practically turns into a crowded marketplace. Of course, every single gift has been sent by June. Despite all of his efforts, Susie still refuses to accept his confession. Since none of his romantic plans seem to be working, June eventually decides to take a much more extreme approach. He kidnaps Susie so that he can finally sit down and talk to her properly. As soon as Susie's friend Han learns about this, he rushes over to rescue her. Shin is with him as well. Han tells Shin to open the main door, but June refuses to unlock it. Because of this, Han prepares to break the door down by force. Shin immediately tells him not to get so worked up, but Han refuses to listen. Then, at the exact moment Han charges forward to smash the door open, June suddenly opens it himself. As a result, poor Han ends up crashing face first onto the floor. Even after embarrassing himself, Han is still happy because, in his mind, he has successfully rescued Susie from June. Afterward, Han escorts Susie and Shin back to the hostel. Before leaving, he tells Susie that if June ever bothers her again, she should contact him immediately. From this scene, it becomes quite obvious that Han secretly likes Susie. However, there is another complication because Shin also has feelings for Han. Meanwhile, despite trying every possible method, June still fails to win Susie's heart. Seeing this, his second personality finally speaks up. He tells June, "Just let me come out once, and then watch how easily I make Susie fall for us." The next day, June approaches Susie and asks her to slap him. Naturally, Susie refuses because she doesn't want to hit him without a reason, so June deliberately touches her. And just as expected, Susie's strange condition activates instantly. A second later, a loud slap lands directly on June's cheek. However, instead of being upset, June looks incredibly happy because this was exactly what he wanted. Later, while Susie is eating in the cafeteria, June's second personality appears in front of her. Unlike the original June, this version seems much more confident and charming. The first thing he does is bring Susie all kinds of delicious food and place them in front of her. After bringing all that food for Susie, June's second personality continues taking care of her in every possible way. Later, when the weather becomes cold and Susie goes outside, he immediately starts worrying about her and shows an incredible amount of care and concern. A little later, while Susie is hanging out with her friends, she suddenly hears an announcement being broadcast through the college speakers. To her shock, it is June publicly confessing his feelings for her. Hearing this, Susie immediately rushes toward the announcement room. When she arrives, she quickly stops June and asks him what exactly he thinks he's doing. In response, June confidently tells her that if she simply agrees to become his girlfriend, then he will stop doing all these dramatic things. However, Susie tells him that she is willing to be anything except his girlfriend. Not wanting to give up, June's second personality comes up with another idea. He prepares a contract and convinces Susie to sign it. The next morning when June wakes up, he once again finds his second personality standing in front of him. Curious, June immediately asks what kind of contract he made with Susie. His second personality casually replies that he hired Susie as June's model. Hearing this, June becomes extremely annoyed. After all, his second personality has been acting like a romantic boyfriend in front of the entire college and doing all sorts of embarrassing things without his permission. As June reads through the contract, he gradually discovers everything his other personality has been doing behind his back. Later, one afternoon, Susie comes to help June with one of his paintings. The moment June sees her, he becomes confused by her appearance and asks why she is dressed like that. Susie explains that she dressed that way specifically to prevent any accidental physical contact between them. She doesn't want June touching her, and she also doesn't want to end up slapping him again because of her strange condition. But June isn't impressed. He tells her that those clothes won't work and asks her to go change into something else. Following his instructions, Susie changes her outfit. However, to stay safe, she still puts on a pair of gloves. When June notices the gloves, he walks over to her and says, "Do you really think I'm going to keep touching you all the time? Do I look that foolish to you?" Susie immediately hands him the painting supplies and tells him to stop talking nonsense and focus on his artwork instead. While working on the painting, June begins talking about the reason he paints. He says that he creates paintings for only one particular girl. Then he starts sharing a story from his childhood. He explains that when he was young, he was locked inside a dark room. During those difficult days, a little girl would come to visit him every day. She would bring him light and also give him a lollipop. June further explains that the girl's house was located in the same area where he and Susie recently found her grandmother. He also mentions that there used to be a small grocery store there at that time. As Susie listens to his story, she slowly starts realizing something surprising. Every detail June is mentioning seems strangely familiar to her. After finishing the conversation, June gives Susie one of his paintings as a gift. The moment Susie sees the painting, she becomes completely shocked. She immediately starts wondering whether the little girl June has been talking about all this time might actually be her. Anyway, a little later, Shin comes to see Susie and asks whether she has been thinking about June. The truth is that Susie has indeed been thinking about him non-stop. However, she doesn't want to admit it, so she simply lies to Shin and denies it. Later, we see Susie studying together with Han. During their study session, Han suddenly asks whether she is dating June. Before Susie can properly answer, June himself arrives there. The moment Susie sees him, she starts remembering all the moments they have spent together. Meanwhile, June looks at Susie and Han sitting together and immediately asks whether the two of them are dating. Han deliberately answers, "Yes, you're absolutely right, we're dating." The moment June hears those words, he becomes extremely jealous and angry. In the next scene, June asks Susie to meet him somewhere. After waiting for quite a while, he finally sees her arriving. He is just about to scold her for being late when he suddenly remembers something his second personality told him, that he should always treat Susie nicely. Because of that, June swallows his anger and says nothing. Instead, he asks Susie whether she would like to go camping with him. Susie agrees, and eventually Han and Shin also join them on the camping trip. Once they arrive at the campsite, both June and Han start trying their best to win Susie's attention. The two of them practically turn everything into a competition. Meanwhile, poor Shin ends up being completely ignored by everyone. At one point, June and Han get into an argument. As punishment for fighting, they are ordered to stay outside during the night. However, June cannot fall asleep at all. Eventually, he gets up and goes to find Susie. When he finds her, he asks, "Were you sleeping? Did you forget that we were supposed to go look for the lake?" Even though Susie has no desire to wander around in the middle of the night, she reluctantly agrees and follows June. The two of them spend a long time searching for the lake using a map. However, no matter how hard they try, they can't seem to find it. While walking through the dark area, Susie suddenly slips and falls down a slope. Meanwhile, Han and Shin are sitting together outside. At that moment, Shin asks Han a very direct question. "Do you like Susie?" Han honestly answers that yes, he does like her. Hearing that response immediately breaks Shin's heart. Her mood visibly changes. Han notices her expression and asks what happened. Shin responds by saying, "You really don't understand what's wrong?" Han is about to say something else, but before he can finish speaking, Shin suddenly kisses him. The unexpected kiss leaves both of them completely embarrassed. Afterward, Shin finally confesses that she likes him. Meanwhile, Susie is busy scolding June because when she fell earlier, he didn't help her. June immediately defends himself and says, "How was I supposed to save you? Do you think my arms are 10 feet long or something?" This starts another small argument between the two of them. However, shortly afterward, they finally find the lake they have been searching for. The view is absolutely breathtaking. The lake shines beautifully under the moonlight. The sky is filled with countless stars and fireflies are glowing all around them. Together, everything creates a magical and unforgettable scene. As they quietly admire the beautiful view, one of the fireflies gently lands on Susie's hair. June carefully reaches out and removes it for her. The atmosphere suddenly becomes incredibly romantic. And then, without warning, June leans forward and kisses Susie. The sudden kiss leaves Susie completely frozen. The truth is that she had already started developing feelings for June as well. However, because of her strange condition, physical contact immediately triggers her reflex, and before she can stop herself, she slaps June once again. At this point, poor June has probably received more slaps than anyone else in the world. And just like before, after receiving the slap, June's second personality takes over once again. Later, when they return to the campsite, this version of June behaves incredibly kindly toward everyone. He talks warmly, smiles often, and treats everybody with genuine care. Seeing such a dramatic change in his personality, everyone is left shocked and confused. Anyway, after the camping trip ends, they all return home. In the next scene, everyone visits Susie's grandmother. After some time, June arrives there as well. Since his second personality is still in control, he greets Susie's grandmother cheerfully. The grandmother is delighted to see him and immediately starts calling him her future grandson-in-law. From there, everyone spends a wonderful time together. Some people perform little acts, others show off magic tricks, and eventually Susie even performs a dance for everyone. The atmosphere becomes warm and joyful as they continue chatting and laughing together. At one point, everyone starts holding hands with each other. Susie also reaches out and holds June's hand. Surprisingly, this time something completely unexpected happens. Even though they touch, Susie doesn't slap him. However, the physical contact still has an effect. The moment Susie holds his hand, June's second personality disappears, and the original June returns. A little later, June goes over to say goodbye to Susie's grandmother. But this time, the grandmother looks completely confused. She stares at June and asks, "Who are you?" Susie quickly explains, "He's your future grandson-in-law, don't you recognize him?" But the grandmother shakes her head and says, "No, this can't be my future grandson-in-law." This makes everyone realize something surprising. Susie's grandmother only recognizes June's second personality and doesn't recognize the original June at all. Anyway, after leaving the hospital, June and Susie step outside and notice that snow is falling. The entire place looks beautiful under the first snowfall. While watching the snow, June tells Susie about something he once heard. According to the story, if a couple kisses during the first snowfall of the season, they will never be separated from each other. The moment Susie hears this, she doesn't hesitate for even a second. Instead, she immediately leans forward and kisses June herself. In the next scene, after arriving at college the following day, Susie notices that everyone seems to be talking about her. Students keep whispering and staring in her direction. The whole situation feels very strange to her. Wanting to know what's going on, she approaches Han and asks why everyone is gossiping about her. Han explains that people have started spreading rumors that Susie is only dating June because of his money. According to the rumors, if June weren't rich, Susie would never have chosen to date him. Surprisingly, even after hearing such hurtful comments, Susie doesn't get angry. Meanwhile, a girl named Eugene suddenly comes to meet Susie. She introduces herself as June's girlfriend, and even claims that she and June are going to get married very soon. Not stopping there, Eugene warns Susie to stay away from June. However, Susie refuses to believe a single word she says. Instead of backing down, Susie confidently tells Eugene that she doesn't believe her story at all. Susie confidently tells Eugene that no matter what happens, she has no intention of leaving June. Hearing this answer, Eugene becomes furious. In a fit of anger, she throws water towards Susie. However, before the water can reach her, June suddenly appears and protects Susie. Seeing June come to her rescue once again, Susie can't help staring at him. For a moment, she completely forgets everything else and just looks at him. In the next scene, Eugene visits June's house. It turns out that Eugene is actually one of June's old friends. She has liked him for a long time, and because of that, she tells June that from now on, she plans to stay at his house. Naturally, June immediately refuses and tells her to leave. However, Eugene completely ignores him and acts as if she owns the place. At that exact moment, Susie arrives at June's house to meet him. Unfortunately, the first thing she sees is Eugene standing there with June. Because of this, Susie completely misunderstands the situation. Without listening to any explanation, she gets angry and storms away. June quickly realizes what happened and chases after her all the way to the hostel. There, he repeatedly tries to explain that things are not what they seem. However, Susie is too upset to listen to him. Since it is a girls' hostel, the security guard refuses to let June enter, leaving him completely helpless. Meanwhile, we see Han looking extremely worried. The reason is that his basketball team has an important match that day. Unfortunately, one of their players became sick and couldn't participate. Because of this, Han's team doesn't have enough members to compete properly. Just then, June arrives. Ironically, June has come to ask Han for help. Since Susie is angry with him, he has no idea how to make things right. And because Han is Susie's friend, June assumes he might know how to cheer her up. However, Han immediately refuses and says he has no intention of helping him. At that moment, a basketball suddenly flies toward Han. June casually catches the ball and then throws it straight into the basket with perfect accuracy. Seeing this incredible shot, Han instantly changes his attitude. He tells June that if he agrees to play in today's basketball match, then Han will help him figure out how to make up with Susie. June quickly accepts the deal. Soon, the basketball game begins. Meanwhile, Eugene shows up carrying a bottle of water for June. However, June takes the bottle from Eugene and immediately hands it to Susie, asking her to open it for him instead. Right at that moment, another boy enters the scene and interrupts them. The second Susie sees him, she becomes extremely surprised. This boy's name is Jack. In the past, Susie used to work as a model for Jack's paintings, so the two of them already know each other. As Susie starts talking with Jack, June becomes visibly jealous. Meanwhile, once the match starts, June notices Jack and immediately thinks to himself, if I defeat this guy, Susie will definitely be impressed by me. However, things don't go according to plan. Instead of cheering for June, Susie starts cheering for Jack. Seeing this makes June even more jealous and competitive. As a result, the basketball game quickly turns into a fierce battle between the two boys. Both of them give everything they have, determined to outperform the other. The competition becomes incredibly intense. In the end, however, June manages to win the game. But despite winning the match, the situation between him and Susie is far from over. After falling to the ground, he hits his head quite badly. At the same time, Han injures his hand while trying to catch him. The moment Susie sees June fall, she immediately rushes over to him. She carefully checks where he is hurt and becomes visibly worried about his condition. Seeing how much Susie cares about him makes June incredibly happy. Meanwhile, we see Han and Shin together. At long last, the two of them have officially become a couple. During a romantic moment, they even share their first kiss. Unfortunately, their timing couldn't have been worse. Just then, one of their teachers suddenly appears nearby. Shin immediately panics and runs away from the scene. However, Han doesn't realize that Shin has already left. Thinking Shin is still standing beside him, Han leans in and kisses someone on the cheek. A second later, he realizes that it isn't Shin at all. It is their teacher. The moment Han figures out what happened, he becomes completely embarrassed and runs away as fast as he can. Meanwhile, June continues trying to make up with Susie. He finally explains everything about Eugene. He tells Susie that although Eugene likes him, he has never liked Eugene back. In fact, the only person he has feelings for is Susie. He assures her that there has never been any romantic relationship between him and Eugene. After hearing the truth, Susie finally lets go of her anger. She picks up a glass of water and offers it to June. However, just as June is about to take it, he suddenly stops. The reason is simple. If Susie accidentally touches him, his second personality might awaken again. And now that June has genuinely fallen in love with Susie himself, he no longer wants to lose control to his other personality. In a way, June has now started fighting against his own mind. Unfortunately, Susie doesn't know what he is thinking. She simply forces the glass into his hands and makes him drink the water. As soon as Susie touches him, June starts experiencing the familiar pain in his chest again. And just as he feared, his second personality awakens once more. Later that night, Susie is walking together with June's second personality when Jack suddenly appears. The moment Jack sees them, tension fills the air. Before long, Jack and June's second personality begin arguing over Susie. The argument eventually turns into a debate about whose painting Susie should model for. Fed up with both of them, Susie walks away and loudly announces that she will be June's model. After that, a painting competition is organized. Jack creates an incredibly beautiful portrait of Susie. His artwork is so impressive that everyone is amazed by it. Meanwhile, June paints something completely different. Instead Instead of focusing only on Susie's appearance, he creates a painting of the special place where he and Susie shared their first kiss. The painting is filled with emotion and memories. Even though many people find June's artwork beautiful, the judges ultimately declare Jack the winner of the competition. At that moment, Susie stands up in front of everyone and says that for her, June's painting is the most beautiful one of all. Hearing those words means more to June than any trophy ever could. Later, we see June sitting quietly by himself, replaying Susie's words over and over in his mind while smiling happily. A staff member notices this and becomes confused. He wonders how someone can lose a competition yet still look so happy. However, June simply smiles and doesn't answer. In the next scene, all of their friends are gathered together for a celebration. During the gathering, Susie drinks far more than she should and eventually becomes completely drunk. Before long, she falls asleep right there. Meanwhile, June keeps standing nearby and watching her. The problem is that he cannot simply pick her up or help her himself. After all, if he touches Susie, it could trigger the personality switch once again and bring his second personality back to the surface. Of course, June is trying his best not to touch Susie, because he knows that if he does, his second personality might take control again. Anyway, the next day at college, June approaches Susie and starts saying all kinds of sweet and romantic things to her. Hearing those words makes Susie extremely shy. Seeing her reaction, June becomes even more romantic and continues teasing her with affectionate comments. Eventually, Susie is so touched by his words that she gently kisses him on the forehead before walking away. The other students witness the entire scene and immediately start staring at June. Realizing that everyone saw what happened, June becomes so embarrassed that he starts blushing. However, because Susie touched him, the familiar personality switch is slowly approaching once again. We then see June and his second personality arguing with each other inside his mind. The reason is actually quite simple. Both of them have fallen in love with Susie. Now, neither one wants to give her up. As a result, they start fighting over who deserves to stay with Susie. Both versions of June want to be the one standing by her side, which creates constant conflict between them. Later, June tells Susie that he wants to take her shopping, but Susie looks confused and says, "Don't you remember? You already took me shopping yesterday." The moment she says that, June realizes what happened. Yesterday, it wasn't him who spent time with Susie, it was his second personality. Naturally, June becomes furious at his other self. Afterward, June takes Susie to a restaurant. However, while they are eating, Susie casually mentions that he already brought her to the exact same restaurant the day before. Once again, June realizes that this was another thing his second personality did. At this point, he becomes even more annoyed because his other self keeps creating memories with Susie that he never gets to experience. Later, June and Susie visit Susie's grandmother together. While they are there, Susie speaks with one of the nurses and learns something surprising. The nurse reveals that June visits her grandmother almost every single day and takes very good care of her. Hearing this makes Susie appreciate him even more. That night, Susie talks with Shin and admits that she finds June's behavior very strange. She explains that sometimes it feels as if he becomes a completely different person. For example, he takes her shopping at the same place on 2 different days and brings her to the same restaurant twice in a row, almost as if he doesn't remember doing it the first time. Although Susie finds it unusual, she still doesn't know the real reason behind it. The following morning, Susie goes to June's house to see him. After entering, she notices that the entire room is filled with paintings of her. There are countless portraits and sketches, and every single one is beautifully drawn. Seeing all those paintings makes Susie realize just how deeply June loves her. At that moment, June arrives. He is about to finally tell Susie the complete truth about himself and his condition. However, before he can say anything, Susie suddenly stops him and kisses him. As expected, the physical contact triggers another personality switch. Soon afterward, June's second personality takes control once again. From this point on, things become more complicated. Whenever Susie tries to get close to him, this version of June starts avoiding her. The reason is that he knows if Susie touches him again, he could disappear, and the original June would return. And unlike before, this second personality no longer wants to give up control. Unfortunately, Susie has no idea what is happening, so she can't understand why his behavior has suddenly changed. Meanwhile, June's second personality becomes desperate. He refuses to sleep because he knows that if he falls asleep, the original June might come back. and that is the last thing he wants. By now, he has completely fallen in love with Susie and wants to spend the rest of his life with her. Because of this obsession, he does everything possible to keep the original June trapped inside his mind while he remains in control. The next day happens to be Susie's birthday, so all of their friends gather together to celebrate it. Everyone spends a wonderful time together, and the entire day is filled with laughter and happy memories. During the celebration, Susie starts talking to this version of June about all the memories they have shared as a couple. She tells him about the places they visited together, the moments they spent with each other, and all the special things they have done. However, this isn't the original June. Because of that, he doesn't actually know any of those memories. So whenever Susie talks about their relationship, he can only nod his head and pretend that he understands. At this point, we are shown another flashback. Earlier, Susie had received a message explaining June's condition. The message revealed that June had 2 different personalities living inside him. It even included details that helped Susie distinguish between the original June and his second personality. After reading that message, Susie had already figured out the truth. She realized that the person standing in front of her wasn't the real June at all. It was his second personality. Eventually, this fake June also realizes that Susie already knows everything. As a result, he decides to take extreme measures. He knocks Susie unconscious and takes her away. Later, when Susie wakes up, she discovers that she has been tied up. Although the situation looks hopeless at first, she refuses to give up. After struggling for quite a while, she finally manages to free herself. Just as she is about to escape, the fake June suddenly appears in front of her. Susie immediately warns him not to come any closer, but he continues walking toward her. At that moment, Susie remembers something important from the message she received earlier. The message said that whenever June's heartbeat becomes extremely fast, the original June can return. Remembering this, Susie makes a bold decision. She runs straight toward him and wraps her arms around him. Then she kisses him. The sudden kiss causes June's heartbeat to skyrocket. A few moments later, he loses consciousness and collapses. When he finally opens his eyes again, the real June has returned. Seeing this, Susie becomes emotional. She tells June not to worry anymore. She promises that from now on, she won't touch him carelessly again. She also tells him that she now knows everything about his condition and that she will do everything possible to help him recover. Then she says something that touches June deeply. She promises that no matter how long it takes, she will wait for him. Hearing those words makes June happier than ever. From that day forward, Susie begins researching ways to help cure June's condition. A little later, June secretly calls Han and asks him to keep Susie away from him. He doesn't want her coming to see him for the time being. Following June's request, Han and Shin try their best to stop Susie from meeting him. However, Susie quickly realizes that something suspicious is happening. Because of that, she tricks them and rushes straight to June's house. When she arrives, she can't find June anywhere. At that moment, she realizes the truth. June is leaving. In reality, June has decided to go abroad to receive treatment for his condition. He chose not to tell Susie directly because he didn't want to make things harder for her. After learning this, Susie is heartbroken. Desperate to stop him, she starts running through the streets trying to find him before it's too late. After running for a long time, she becomes exhausted and nearly runs out of breath. Then suddenly, someone appears in front of her. It's June. At first, Susie becomes nervous. Because of everything that has happened, she isn't sure whether this is the real June or his second personality, so she tells him to stay away from her. June slowly walks closer and gently says, "You really are an amazing girl." The moment Susie hears those words, she realizes that this is the real June. As it turns out, June's condition has been gradually improving, and a huge reason behind that recovery is Susie's love and support. Because of that, June finally makes a decision. He decides that he doesn't want to leave Susie behind anymore. Instead of going somewhere far away, he chooses to stay with the person he loves. And with that, the two of them finally reunite. After overcoming countless misunderstandings, challenges, personality switches, and emotional struggles, June and Susie are finally together once again. The drama then comes to a heartwarming ending by showing this beautiful reunion, giving the story the happy ending it truly deserves.